Hi everybody, good evening. It's Robert Hansen. Welcome. It's another one of our Facebook Live sessions here. I hope everybody's doing well. And if you're new, first time coming aboard with me, just hello. Thank you so much for being a part of this Friday night chat. And if you're a return person, I once again would love to welcome you and thank you for being a part of this experience. Tonight, the topic of tonight is a little bit unusual. It's called Living in Two Worlds. And at first glance, we often think of that term as though we're living in this world and then in another world, which certainly is implied by the comment living in two worlds, yes? So the first part of tonight's topic will be addressing the psychic experience, the psychic spiritual experience of what it's like to live in what we commonly call the normal world, the regular world, the world of, let's say, the regular folks, the average human beings, like myself, my wife, my kids, like everybody else. And then there are people, again, like myself, that have had somewhat of a shift in their conscious streaming. Something has occurred within them, either as a result of some kind of direct interaction, which is what happened to me, or through a systematic process of development where through meditation, through attending classes, through workshops, through participating in different psychic events and different psychic functions, where the innate psychic gift that we all have it, right? We all have it, begins to bubble up to the surface. Now, just to explain that for a minute, people often ask me as a medium, they say, Robert, are you telling me everybody can do what you can do? The answer to that, of course, is yes and no. And I often use this analogy, this example, to kind of help them. I think it would be fair to say that almost anybody, barring extreme physical limitations, could take a basketball and on some level toss it up towards the basket rim. And if you try a few times with a little practice, you shake off some of the old rust, you could probably sink a basket maybe once every 5 times, maybe once every 10 times, but eventually you'll kind of get a rhythm. And if you were to practice it for a couple of weeks, I'm quite sure that eventually you could get back into kind of a flow and a rhythm. Another example might be if you enjoy singing, right? If you enjoy singing, you may sing in the shower, you may take a few voice lessons, you may be part of a chorale, you may be part of a choir, you might sing at a wedding, you might just sing for your family, you sing at work, whatever the variations might be. But for the people that are playing basketball, you can practice basketball from now until your last breath. And you are not going to turn into the great Michael Jordan or the great LeBron James or the great Steve Curry or one of these guys. They are gifted athletes who have a complete dosage of that gift. And not only do they have that basketball athletic gift, they apply it full-time and develop that gift to its maximum. In the same way, you can sing in the bathroom, sing in the shower, sing at a wedding, and so on. But no matter how much you sing, no matter what kind of voice classes you'll have, no matter what kind of voice coaching you may receive, you're not going to sing like the great Andre Bocelli. You're not going to sing like the beautiful Celine Dion. It is not going to happen. They are gifted voices that have been given to them through the universe in some way, which comes out in those unique human beings. However, but I think it's fair to say that everyone can shoot a basket and everyone can learn to sing a little bit. And for the purposes of self-fulfillment, self-enjoyment, working with other people, having a nice experience, helping somebody with a reading, it's wonderful. So therefore, when we deal with this psychic piece of the two worlds, everybody really kind of experiences it, but they can't always put their finger on it or put their thumb on it. So I want to clear up some of the mystique about this, clear up some of these misunderstandings about living in these two worlds. Over my 22 years of doing psychic work, now for those of you that don't know me, I'll share this just a little bit with you. When I was in my 40s, around the later part of my 40s, around 46, 47 years old, in around there, I had basically, to keep it very simple, a shift internally. Something occurred within myself, during my sleep one evening. And when I woke up in the morning, fundamentally, everything had changed. My sensitivities, my insight, my wisdom, everything just seemed to be clearer and different. There were things that led up to this moment. There were things that were leading up to this moment. I've been practicing meditation for a long time. I went through a very arduous recovery from alcoholism, which went on for quite a long time. I found my, quote, spiritual path more increasing as I got a little bit older. And within me, something happened, kind of crystallized, and it kind of erupted into this psychic gift. Now, in my particular case, and I'm only talking about my case, okay? I'm not judging other people or anything like that. In my own case, I call upon the gift only when another person or a group of people have asked me to do so. That's the only time I use it. When people come to my home, when I go visit my family, when I'm out on the road, when I'm in the diner, number one, I don't sense the gift at all. And the reason why is because internally you control it. I know it's there. I know it's there. In the same way I know inside of myself that I can walk. I know it's there, but every time I sit down, I don't get up and walk around just to prove it to myself, right? I know it's there. I know if I need to walk or need to walk quickly or run even, I can do it. It doesn't mean I access it every minute, right? Okay, it's the same thing with my gift. I know it's there. I can feel it inside of me. Now, some people say, how do you feel it? I mean, what are you feeling, right? And that's a great question. So let me address that. And here is where the first analogy of two worlds starts to come in, okay? On one side, I have my normal thinking, like you all do, just, normal thoughts, activities, jobs, paying a bill, making vacation plans, going to the store, buying groceries. You just make your plans. You write a note, you do this, you do that, off you go, Post-its on the fridge, and you conduct yourself as a regular, quote, average guy, average woman in the world running around doing your errands, right? And for most people, that thought process combined with the emotions, happy, sad, frightened, uneasy, angry, discontented, whatever's driving those emotions, right, which are generated by what you think and how you perceive things. It forms an emotional reaction, which is the feeling, right? And then, of course, we have our physical body, which we kind of sense. We don't feel good, we're achy, we feel great, our health is great, or I feel I have a bad neck, or something like that. So basically, in one world, which is the common world, right? The common world. We think, we feel, we experience through the body, and that is the primary singular world, right? On the other side, however, on the gift part of it, on the psychic piece of it, which again, you guys have too, there will be either incidents, there will be moments, there will be intercessions, there will be some kind of penetration past your thoughts, and you begin to have a sense and awareness of other activity, other feelings, other vibrations around you that you recognize specifically as something that you were not consciously thinking about. In other words, you're not generating it yourself, right? You're not generating it yourself. You are feeling it within you, and you start to pay attention to it a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. That is kind of the psychic gift starting to scratch softly at the essence of your soul. It's starting to tap on you and saying, hey, it's starting to break through. You're beginning to wake up to this other world, quote unquote, rather than just the common world which you have been accustomed to since childhood, right? And that's why you'll hear about it so often with little ones, right? I'm sure you've all heard countless stories about little children saying they see dead people and they have this and they have that. And in most cases, that's quite true. And not every case, of course. Sometimes it's imagination gone wild. But many, many times that is true. And as you also know, if you know these kids, over a period of time, that psychic gift or that awakening begins to quiet down again. It seems to disappear because the dynamics of thought, school, education, responsibilities, getting ready for high school, getting ready for college, all of that begins to take place. And the next thing you know, there's no more attending to, aware of, concentrating on the psychic gift. It's a rare young person, 18, 19, 21, 22, like that is fully immersed in the psychic experience. It's not common. There are many people at that age group that are pulled to it out of curiosity, out of interest, out of fascination. Sure, in the same way that people are drawn to, let's say, falling in love. They start to date, they go on websites, they go to certain social clubs, and they can feel their inner genetics, their inner hormonic movement. All of that is beginning to generate the male-female or partnership attractions that go on, right? And you start to act on them. It's almost like they're injected out of some magical place. The next thing you know, you're going from playing with building blocks and silly things to getting your hair done up and putting on a nice shirt, and you're out for the evening with a nice young lady or a nice young guy or whatever the case might be, and you start to feel that little flutter, right? That's the beginning of a love experience. Love is the highest form of the psychic realm. Nothing is higher. Everything is underneath love. Everything is underneath love. You may have heard the quote, God is love, right? God is love. Therefore, if God is love, love is God, everything falls below that. Nothing is higher. Nothing. So the psychic realm not only activates an increased sense of loving, not just loving romantically like husband to wife or husband to child or father to kids. It's a love of nature, a love of fresh air, a love of each moment as it arises, and you begin to tune in much more to what is happening in the present moment that is in front of you. And this, my friends, is one of the big shifts, which is referred to as living in the two worlds. I remember many years ago, I was sitting with happened to be a professor of Harvard University, and we were doing some studies, and he was doing some studies on me, and they were doing some experiments on me, and his name was Dr. Gary Schwartz, who was out of Harvard. He was a professor emeritus out of Harvard, big research guy. He did a special on HBO regarding psychic phenomena. It was very well attended and very well watched. I was part of that study group, not the one that was on HBO, but I was part of his study group. And he said to me when we were done, Robert, you live in two worlds. And it struck me. I'm like, wow, he's kind of right. I can go from this experience into the psychic experience in a snap. I can just, boom, I can go from point A to point B. Now, when I say I can, it doesn't mean I as a special person. I'm not referring to the egoic I. What I'm talking about is I can get up and walk, I can take a drink of water, I can wave my hand in the same way. You follow me? So in that same way that I can gesture with my hand, I can bring out the gift. And that happened to me spontaneously, like that, from moment to moment. Over time, the gift got more polished and more refined, yes. But I was able, and many people that do this work similar to myself, are able to have normal dialogue, normal conversation, normal stuff, right? Just regular day-to-day stuff. Watch a baseball game, have a cup of coffee, sit on the deck, pet the dog, go for a walk, bang your knee, brush your teeth, normal stuff. And then when the gift is called upon, I can shift into a place where my thinking and my emotions, my sensitivities are kind of set to the side. The Robert identity, the me, my story, my identity, what has happened, what is going on, all of the feelings, all of that are kind of moved over. They don't leave, they just kind of shift over. And there is this space that seems to form. For lack of a better word, I use it often if you've ever seen me live. I often say the window begins to open. The window begins to open, right? And when that window begins to open, I can see the thinking, I can see the emotions. I can see the feelings connected to me. I identify them. I feel them. And that, by the way, is very important because you have to learn. And if you are practicing medium or you have interest in mediumship, which is a beautiful, beautiful thing to be a part of, one of the things you learn to do almost immediately in class anyway, is you start to learn to recognize what you're generating as your own thoughts and what you are receiving from something you're not thinking about. Right? So let's say, for example, I'm sitting there and I'm thinking about my wife, I'm thinking about the kids, I'm thinking about getting home. It's been a long day, I have my client coming in, I'm looking at my clock, it's, already 3 o'clock, and I'm kind of looking forward to going home. Now, when the person comes in the room, they are completely, every fiber of me is dedicated to that person. 1,000% I am with that person, and I can shift over or notice the movement of my own Robert stuff, and I then can totally relax and concentrate, be aware, and pay attention to that which not only is that guest or guests sending to me, but also those that are connected to them regarding those who have crossed over and who have died, because their presence is always connected. If you have never been with me before tonight, please understand when souls come through in a reading, they're not coming from outer space and landing on Earth doing a little dance and going back someplace. The truth of it is they never separate from their loved ones, and they move at the speed of thought. The role of a medium is to interpret that. We don't make them come in. You understand? That's a very big misunderstanding. The medium does not bring the soul in. The soul is present, and they sense. An interpreter, someone who understands their language, is nearby, and that's where the match is made, like that. And through that match, there is interpretations and so on. But we're not here tonight to talk about mediumship. But I wanted you to get a sense of this two-world experience. Therefore, you have your regular stuff, and then you have your psychic stuff, which, as you grow as a professional, as you work on the craft, you have absolute control over. That being said, there are people, who I've met, people I respect, that maintain to me that their gift, quote unquote, shows up when they don't expect it. It blindsides them. It comes in when they're at night. It comes in their dreams. It's waking them up out of their chair. They're going in a restaurant. They feel compelled to talk to somebody, not to the point perhaps of tapping him on the shoulder and so on. I mean, I know there are mediums that present that style in the marketplace. I get it. I'm not one of them, but there are that do that. I mean, that's their own business. But my point is that they kind of suggest that the gift comes at any time, all the time. And if that were me, and I had that kind of an experience, I'm not quite sure I would be sitting here. It's almost as though it sounds like to me, and you'd have to talk to them, I guess. It sounds like to me that they have no controls over what is coming. Therefore, they really are just a loose cannon, as it were, just some kind of psychic funnel that randomly seems to pick up stuff. Well, you have to look at this a little bit, guys, okay? Because sometimes people want to exaggerate or inflate the quality of their gift. And they'll say, hey, it comes to me all the time, and I can't stop it. It's overwhelming me. I have all these visions. I have all these dreams. Oh, my, it's like unbelievable. I'm so gifted, that whole bit. And I've seen it many, many times. And perhaps they really believe it. I don't know. But if you sit them down in a chair and ask them to do it, sadly, a lot of times it becomes very, very inconclusive. They get, oh, it's not working right now. What's going on? I can't do it. That kind of thing they kind of protect or insulate it, So under scrutiny, it kind of breaks apart a little bit. And this was one of the reasons why I really admired what Dr. Gary Schwartz had done in his research studies. It was very clinical, double-blind study, very controlled. The readers that were involved had to be very controlled. They were guarded from being socializing with anybody. The clients that were picked were hand-selected, so there was no way the mediums could ever have met them, that kind of a thing. And they began to realize there are people who live in two worlds. They do, and I do as well, right? Now, for some people, the idea that you're living in two worlds can be, kind of suggests kind of a scary thing, like anything can enter, anything can enter. If you live in two worlds, demons can come after you. And I hear all this crazy stuff. So let me clarify this a little bit. I'm paraphrasing the quote, but I think you'll understand the point of it. Whatever you seek inwardly, whatever you seek, you will attract, right? So if you are really genuinely seeking love, genuinely seeking it, really releasing yourself, opening up, no judgment, just moving with the flow of the tides, as it were, being openly available, really being a receiver, keeping yourself centered, those around you and others will feel that. They feel at ease with you. There's a certain calmness. They feel that they can relax with you. They feel welcomed by you. Even if they haven't even talked to you, they don't feel uneasy, right? You've all met people like this, I'm sure. Just good-hearted people. They're just nice guys, nice women. They're just good people, right? You don't feel uneasy around them. And then you meet these other kinds of folks that have this kind of edge and the attitude. You kind of stand next to them and you feel weird and you back away and don't go over there. That guy's got a weird vibe. She's a little bit off. Just kind of keep your distance, that kind of a thing. So that's really your psychological sensory system activating, you see. So when people are suggesting, again, that they have this non-stop flooding of psychic stuff, the other world is constantly coming at them, it almost implies a little bit of a control loss. And for those people, although the gift may be present, I strongly suggest, and if you're one of those kind of people, I really strongly suggest you get someone to help guide you and focus like a laser beam that gift that's going all over the place, because eventually that gift will exhaust you, tire you out. It will also have you come across as someone that is intruding into the lives of other people. And that we never do. You never bring this to another person unless it's absolutely requested and absolutely asked for. You really are walking on very thin ice if you do it, and a lot of people take great offense to it, and they, especially if they come from certain religious backgrounds and stuff, they really don't like it. So that's just a suggestion to you guys, okay? So the first part of tonight's chat is about this other world of the medium, of the psychic. And the receiving of information, the holding of information, the interpreting of information. Now, once the reading is finished, once the reading is done, we also have to know how to close the window. And I work with people all the time on this. They come in and they say, once I'm open, it just doesn't stop. It just doesn't stop. The people that I've met that are authentic, the people that when I use the word authentic, I don't mean meaning well. I don't mean that they have the lingo and they have all of the accoutrements and all of the rituals. And I'm not talking about any of that. And I'm not saying they're not well-intended folks. I'm not implying any of that. Please, I'm not. But there are people that are really kind of caught up in the magical thinking of it. They really want to be psychic, where in fact they've kind of touched on the edges of it. They can play the guitar one song, two songs, and then they say they're a guitar player. I mean, yes, they play the guitar and they can play a few tunes, but they're not Eric Clapton by any stretch of the imagination. And a million light years, they're not Eric Clapton or one of the great guitarists that was ever born, right? So there's a dichotomy between just a little guitar person and a superstar, right? When you're seeking someone for a reading, especially when it comes to your family members, people that you love, people that have crossed over, people that are terminally ill, you want a superstar to read you. You've got to seek someone, really, that is completely focused and attentive to their gift, takes good care of it, and has complete control over it. That means it can be started and stopped as needed. It is appropriately pronounced and appropriately addressed with the right maturity driven behind it. If there is darkness coming in, meaning bad things are coming in, you're seeing another death, you're seeing this, you're seeing an illness evolve, you're seeing a child that's going to run away, something like that. You have to present it in a way with great love and great compassion, right? Not just in the sense you want to just sound cool and make them nervous, like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And create this kind of false dependency upon you, almost asking them to kind of bow to you a little bit as some psychic guru or something. That is not the intent of the gift. It was never intended for that. The gift of psychic mediumship especially has got nothing to do with your ego. And when it involves your ego, the gift is going to break apart, it'll wobble, or it will never mature to its full level, because the essence of the gift is really nothing to do with you. It moves through you. It does. It moves through you. When people say to me, thank you, and sometimes on Facebook they say it, and they talk, Robert, thank you so much, I always make the same comment all the time. I say, it's by God's grace alone and the love of your family that has made this happen. I am just an invited guest. I am just an interpreter. I'm just Robert. I am not an entertainer, and I am not a performer. And if you come to me for that stuff, please, there are people out there in other venues that would be very happy to entertain you. I don't come from that place, and many clear channels do not come from that place. Folks, I am not the only one. Please, I'm not sitting here suggesting I'm the only guy. But I'm trying to help you understand, when you are with someone like me, or someone, kind of does what I do, we actually do live in these two different worlds. Now, what is this other world we're referring to, right? In my physical phenomena, there's you and I, there's the recording device, there's lamps, there's lights around me, and I'm wearing my shirt, and you can see my face and all of that, right? We're here, I'm here, right here. This is your world, that's my world, right? I'm in my office, that whole bit. But the unseen world, right? The world that we can't see, that's the world where love flows, right? I can see who I love, but I can't see love. I see the effect of light, but I can't see light itself. I can't. You can't. I can't. No one can see light itself. We can see where light shines onto, where light stops if it hits the floor, or where light stops if it hits the wall. Yes, but we can't see light itself. We can't see light itself, right? We can't. So in that particular setting, we have this change, this shift from awareness of my physical phenomena, and you become tuned into other people's movement emotionally, and you begin to sense more and more. And as you start to settle and relax more, meaning your thoughts become even lower and lower, and when your thoughts lower down, this window is opening. And it's through that window that you begin to receive the vibrations, the movement, the essence of those that have crossed over. They come through with images and vibrational sounds and emotional feelings. They will point to specific things. And all they are simply doing, friends, all they're doing is they're asking me and people like me to serve as an interpreter of their love letter. That's all it is. They are sending a love letter, and because the loved one who they've been sending this letter to doesn't receive it or recognize it or feel it, they finally go, woof, I have someone here that can interpret for me. He can describe the other world to them, which is the world that I live in. I live in the world of emptiness. I live in the world of spatial freedom. I live in a world that doesn't require a physical body. I live in a world where there is no harm. I live in a world there is no suffering. I live in a world there is complete reunion. I live in a world of love and peace, and that is why I have come to you. That is the world that most of you miss. How do you know that? Because of your grief, your sorrow. You're searching all over the place for them, right? Going to here, there, and everywhere with every psychic on planet Earth, trying to make contact, right? Looking for bird feathers, looking for this, looking for signs, looking for symbols. A perpetual hunt, constant hunt, constantly, that they are near you and around you, right? And at the end of it, most of you, I think, are left with the idea, I think it's true, I want to believe it, oh God, I hope it's true, I hope it's true, like that. There is really not a shift from I know, I hope, to it is. And when you sense it is absolutely 100% valid, your grief changes. It does. It changes from I want them back, I want them here, to they have just shifted into a new appearance. They had to get rid of the body. They had to get rid of the sickness. Sometimes the psychology demands that they interrupt their own body with interruption of life, a suicidal death. Sometimes an outsider will do it to them, as in murder, where their life is interrupted unexpectedly. Right? Now, we can argue all around the clock here that their soul requested to be shot. We can get into that whole thing, but I'm not about to. That would take 10 hours. So for tonight, world that is split between this world and the other world, part one, right, is the world of the medium, the world of the psychic, who lives here and lives there, who lives here and who lives there. That is the role of the psychic medium. That is the role that we share in the two worlds of living. Now, I want to address you guys, okay? Some of you may be sitting back and saying, I have no psychic gift. And you may not have a gift. You may have some type of psychic ability. Yes. As I said to you earlier, right, there are people that can sing. We all have the ability to sing. And then you have gifted singers, right? You have a gifted singer. It's not quite the same thing. A gifted singer's on Broadway or appearing at the Nassau County Coliseum or something, and an okay singer or the bathroom singer is basically singing for the kids in the house on their birthday party. Right? They're both singing, right? But it's a little bit of a different story, right? Okay. So it's kind of like that with this. So when you have this gift, when you have the gift part, right, it takes great nurturing, great humility, great care of this other world. And when you take care of this gift, the other world, which is constantly around you, senses that. They can sense the freshness of it. They can sense the genuineness of it. They can sense that it has no other attachments other than the purpose of healing and compassion. And folks, if you're doing my work, and you're out there as a medium or a psychic, and healing and compassion are not the cornerstones of your work, I think you have to think about what your real motives are. I'm not judging anybody, please, I'm not. But this is a gift given through us to help people. I did not make this happen. And when somebody says psychically, it's my gift, I can do, I do. Step back for a moment and just listen very carefully, because you're about to hear a story of ego run wild here, right? So you got to be a little Kool-Aid with that. But the other world is more profound, right? In the essence of meditation, in the essence of Zen, in the essence of any of the great spiritual pursuits, right? Whether it come through the Judeo-Christian cultures of the Kabbalah, whether it come through the Tibetan Book of the Dead, whether it come through the Zen koans, whether it come through the Christian old world teachings, whether it come through the Native American the belts that they wore with the secrets of their tribes, all of this stuff, all of it, right? All of it, they all had this sense of preparing for the other world. They're preparing for the departure from this plane to the next. As they do this, they are living their lives, of course, but there becomes a problem in living in those two worlds. And I meet this and I see this all the time. There are people that live this life, physical being life, with the sole idea that they have to behave well, do well, become enlightened in this lifetime. And what they're really not doing is living this life. They're just living this life, existing in this life, manipulating, as it were, this life, with the idea of eventually when they die, then they'll get it. Like a payoff. You know what I'm saying? And they live in those two different worlds. It is the world here that kind of I have to deal with, but I'm really internally knowing when I'm dead, when I lose my life, I'm going to go home to my family and my kids and my friends, and that's when I'm going to really start. A lot of people are like this, and they have this kind of two-world mentality here and then eventually there. Right? I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. There's a problem, because you are abandoning the present moment in the pursuit of the imagination of what you want to believe is going to exist. I want to say that again. You are leaving the present moment, which is the sacred. If you want to talk about something that is sacred, if you want to talk about something that is love itself, it is right here, right now, in your life, in my kids' lives, in your kids' lives. It is the radiance of life and love as it is blossoming every moment in all its awe, right? But if you are constantly trying to get away from this, trying to pursue the imagination through wearing robes and wearing beads and all that, there's nothing wrong with it in itself. I'm not knocking it. I'm not knocking it. But if you do that to kind of ritualize your world, role play out what it's like to be psychic, role play out what it's like to be holistic, role play out what it's like to be spiritual, like that, it is really another form of acting. People that are truly spiritual, really spiritual, they don't even know it. They have no idea. They've transcended to a point where they really don't even pay attention to it. You know, in Japan, they have this thing called the wood cutting prints, or the wood block prints. And fundamentally, it shows the guy at the beginning. If you don't know what I'm talking about, they used to like etch into wood characters. You know, they would carve into wood. And then they'd take and put in some ink, and they'd squish it on paper, and they'd have an image. That's called the wood block cutting, right? They wood block it, and then they go on. In Japan, they have a series of them. And the first one shows a guy, he's living his typical life, he's all jammed up, all kinds of problems, all kinds of pressures, and he begins to pursue enlightenment. He wants to pursue Zen, he wants to get his life back, he wants to live a more complete, open, relaxed, peaceful existence. And at the end of it all, after he goes through these challenges, he goes through it, he finally comes to the place where surrender has taken place. He has received a complete freedom from the suffering and the strains of this life. And where does this guy wind up working? Back in the supermarket where he started, sweeping the floor. But now when he sweeps the floor, he is totally fulfilled. Every breath, every sip of water, every scratch of the back, every bird that sings, every hug of the body is totally enjoyed, totally experienced, and totally released. You see. So you have, for the civilians, you have people that live in two worlds in this way. They have the world of their imagination, the pursuit of what others are telling them, and they have the world they're living in. And those clash. And if you really meet those people and sit with them, like I have the privilege of doing quite often, in most cases, I'm not saying every case, but in most cases, there is a high level of discontent. There is a high level of agitation. There is a high level of expectation. There is a high level of frustration. Because the world, according to their thoughts, their ideas, their planning, it didn't work out the way they wanted. So they begin to reject this world, quote unquote, and they try to live in another world that is kind of talked about in meditation books and so on, and they say, that's the world I want to live in. I don't want to be this, I want to be that. Right? I don't want to be this. I don't want to be this average housewife or this average house guy and have frustrations and bills and kids and crying and whining. But you know what? That is life itself. It is. You don't walk around in the woods with running waterfalls and deer licking things off your face all day long, and that's a form of enlightenment. Those are images in books. And if there is a unique being that happened to be born with that pull, so be it for them. But that is not our world. So how does one integrate the day-to-day experience of all the trouble, all the frustrations, all of the anxiety, all of the fear, all of that stuff, and at the same time, and this is a tricky way of saying it, prepare, and I hate to use that word, but I'm going to use it, to prepare to move on into the next world. Right? That's a tricky thing, right? Everyone does it. Even the guys that got enlightened, even the women that became enlightened throughout history, almost across the board, just about universally. I mean, there are some very rare historical exceptions, but just about across the board historically, whether it be the Buddha, the Christ figure, and so on and so on and so on, there was always a very high level of suffering, discontent, upsetment that went along with them. It is not a requirement for change, but it seems to be, as it was with me, a big component of change. Now, I'm not sitting here suggesting I'm an enlightened being. I'm not alluding to that. So please don't say Robert's thinking he's enlightenment. I'm not saying that. Have I enjoyed certain insights and different shifts in my awareness? 1,000%. I am completely, I tell it to my wife, Kate, all the time. I am not the same man that was around here some years ago. I completely feel like I was like reborn, if you like. I hate to use that word because I know it appeals to some Christian cultures about reborn people, so I don't want to touch on toes, but I think you understand. This rebirthing of myself came completely as a result of going through terrifically difficult times, real gut-wrenching times in my own life where I didn't know what to do, where to go. And then it became very clear to me that half of my mind was in the world of confusion, one world, and fear and anxiety and doubt and worry. And the other world was where there were times where a little quieter, a little more settled down. And I was always trying to get rid of the fear, worry like that to try to get to the world of peace and happiness. And in doing so, I was constantly judging, constantly measuring, constantly trying to figure out a way, manipulate meditation, you name it, do it, prayers, this, that. I was trying everything on earth to try to make that happen. And nothing happened. Even I had the catchphrases, I could talk some things, I could show people how to sit, I could do this, I could do that. But at the end of the day, internally, I'm still wobbling. Back then, I was still like this, right? So it became very apparent to me that if I just allowed it to be and didn't try to pursue anything, magic took place. Magic. I said, oh my God, this is so simple. It's so simple. And what I thought was going to be this arduous thing became simple. Look, I've shared this openly here many, many times, so I have no problem talking about it. I've been in recovery from alcoholism and addiction for probably 30 years. I've been around NA, rehabs, the whole 9 yards for quite a while in my life, right? And I and many other people go into a facility. We're all dealing with different levels of addiction and struggles and fears and anxieties. I'm putting myself there, right? And the counselors come out, the doctors come out, the nurses come out, the staff comes out, and they're all dedicated pretty much to trying to help us find our way out of this craziness and live a nice life. That's what they're driven to doing. And many of those guys, by the way, also struggled like myself. And they'll tell you that every one of you never has to live like this again. They'll tell you straight up. You just do what we tell you to do. Go to a meeting, don't use for the day. That's it. They keep it very simple. Go to a meeting, in other words, like an AA meeting. Don't use any alcohol. Don't take any drugs for the day. If you feel that you're compelled to do it, you really have to do it. You're driven to do it. You make a phone call. You go to a meeting. You have someone come over. You do whatever you have to do to save your life. You do what you have to do. Now, there are many people that say, yes, 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 that's what I'm going to do. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do it. And they never do it because they go back and use again. And that was me too. Lip service was easy. But at the end of the day, I was lying to myself. The counselor said, you want to lie to yourself, go ahead. You're just going to go back into hell again. And they were right. And then there came that point where I just felt like someone pulled the air, popped the balloon. And all of that suffering fell on the floor. And I felt light as a feather. I felt like I could float. Sincerely, I felt like I could float. And I said to myself, and I said to the guys in my group, I said, it's over for me. I never used a drug or a drink again. Right? However, to honor that, to really appreciate what happened, and like a deep sense of appreciation. And Zen, they call it Om. Om, not Om Man Padme Om. That's from the Hindi people. Om, like Om. It means I have a deep respect, a deep thanks, a deep gratitude for being freed of this bondage. And to do that, we do two things. We continue our own recovery, and we share it with people who are struggling at no charge, of course. There's never money involved. And you do that as an honoring for the life given back to you. That same example applies right here, tonight, right now. Right now. If you're at a place internally, where you're living in two worlds, meaning that you are living in this world, this physical world, and you're trying to live in this other place, and the only way you think you can get to the other place is by thoughts, by ritual, by imagination, by going to a billion classes, all of that stuff. There's a rare bird that may happen, but most people, they become frustrated and they go, to hell with it. Life is life, life stuff, life sucks, life's this, life's that. I'll live and then I'm just dead and get on with it and I'm gone. And they have this fatalistic approach, I give up kind of a feeling, and they sit back and they watch a few of the, let's say, senior citizens smiling on TV, playing golf in Florida or something and saying, well, that's those guys, but look at me, I'm still working here, I'm miserable, you know? And they really are living in two worlds. They can't be settled where they are, and they can't get settled in their imagination. And both of them cause great distress and great pain, right? So what is the secret to it? What is the secret? And we've talked about it on these workshops periodically, in the Facebook Lives, on my Facebook posts, and you've all heard it before. When one lives in a separated mind, right? For example, good and bad, right and wrong. I want this, I don't want that. Positive and negative. These polarities exist, generated by thought. Those thoughts are generated by your conditioning, your genetics, your experience, your culture, your religious upbringing, and on and on and on. And it kind of defines to your mind how it should respond. And your mind wants to believe it and says, to get through these challenges, I have to take this approach, right? And you meet people, for example, that are very religious, very devoted to their faith, and they have great safety and great security living in the world of faith and living in the world here. And they merge. And they basically live in one world with great faith. And that's a very nice place to live, right? Live in one world with deep faith. Now, what is that faith in? It might be the faith in a God of your understanding. It might be in the faith of the men and women you work with. It might be in the faith of your family. It might be in, and I hope, in the deep trust and faith of yourself. To really intimately see that your evolution as a human being, that you are pure consciousness itself, that you are unfolding beautifully. And the stories that your mind is telling you is making one world, and what is really happening is the true world, which we call the enlightened world, where you look at something, you see something, you feel something, and you see it not only as just the shifting of life continually, it's just constantly unflowing, right? It's just constantly unflowing. Things that you thought you could hold on to, you find out eventually slip through your fingers. Things that you are attached to eventually rip apart. Things that you want to believe in eventually fall apart. And as time moves on, you begin to see that the more and more as life unfolds, less and less control you have. And that, my friends, is a wonderful thing to have. I want to be clear, please. I'm not talking about controlling your budget. I'm not talking about controlling your intake of food. I'm not talking about controlling how you drive your car. That is external stuff. I'm not talking about that. What I am talking about is internally trying to control everything. How somebody loves you, how someone feels about you, what they should do for you, what they shouldn't do for you, what you should be doing, how you should be acting, and on and on and on and on and on. And it's a continuing performance, which is what it is. It's a performance driven by what you think, you believe you should be. So here is the world, and there is you, and they live apart. And you can sense this living apart because of the stress, because of the anxiety, because of the disappointment, because of the fragileness, or on the other side, because of the aggression, because of constantly sticking your chest out, because you're quick to argue, because you feel you have rights because you have more money or something, and you can do all of these things to make your world more secure and more safe. But at the cause of it, at the root of it, is separation. Because you do not feel complete, and you do not feel whole, and there is a sense of opposites. And that is the other version of the two worlds. It gets much deeper than this, but we have a little bit of limitation on our times here together on these chats. So to kind of put a synopsis on all of this and kind of put it together, you have the first world, which is how the psychics deal with this other world, right? This other world that we have. But it's not really another world. It's just an expanded interpretation, an expanded attention, an expanded awareness of what is right here. When you look in a room, like I'm sitting in my office now, when you look in a room, there's lamps and there's a couch and there's a little fireplace over here and so on and so on. And I can see it. It's spatial. I can see it. And what is between me and the couch is air, space, emptiness, right? And in the mind, we just walk through it like it's supposed to be there, right? But space, emptiness is what allows me, my desk, the recorder system here, all of this is a result of being permitted to enter into this spatial experience. Now, when physical form ends, dissolves, especially the human body, which contains the soul, where does it go? For some reason, people bring it away from here, like it shoots off into Never Never Land, like Peter Pan or something. And the truth of it is, it stays right here. But because your brain is only taught to look for solids, right, the hard stuff, you have been taught over 1 million years of evolution as a human being only to really see the physical. I'll give you another example. This might help you a little bit. I had an opportunity to go to Japan on several occasions. I mean, it took over a 10-year period. I was back and forth, and I had a friend of mine that was an American guy that was a shakuhachi master. Now, if you don't know what the shakuhachi is, it's the Japanese flute. You may hear it sometimes in a restaurant, or it's got kind of an ethereal sound. And most people, when they listen to the flute, they comment on the tones and the reverence of the tones and the beauty of the sound. And that's very true. Let's call that the world, right? But the real masters, including my friend, God rest his soul, his name was Ron, was one of the rare Americans to receive a master's degree in shakuhachi in Japan. That's how talented he was. He came out of the Brooklyn area. His name was Ron Selden. He was a very, very gifted man, a wonderful person. But he taught me, and I saw, and I listened. He says, listen more for the silence in between the tones. That is what separates the master and the student. The master allows emptiness to be and fills in when he knows it's supposed to be there. Where the beginner just kind of plays. And I was like startled by that. I said, so what you're telling me is that when they listen for the emptiness as well as the filling. He goes, that's it. I said, that's exactly what happened with me with my gift. And he goes, exactly. For him it happened with his flute. For me it happened with the mediumship. And it really struck me. And I said, my goodness, they are talking about exactly what I've experienced. That there is the physical phenomena and everything that embraces it. And yet, they coexist as one complete level of consciousness with no separation. So at the end of the day, consciousness and the level of awareness of consciousness is what either holds you back or, quote, permits you to have a deeper experience of these other worlds, you see. But to have those experiences of these other worlds, it also tells us and makes us feel and directs us not to have attachments and holding on. When we try to hold on to an experience, a memory, a physical property, another human being, holding on to an old party we went to, which was so great, right? Constantly flipping through old photographs. We're trying to attach, contain, hold on to what we feel is missing, you know? And as a human mind, I get it. But on a deeper level, I also get it, that it's just temporary movement. And what makes me attach has got nothing to do with the natural flow of life itself, which has no attachments. The natural flow of life attaches to nothing. It's just a constant rising and falling like the waves in the ocean. They roll in and they roll out. They roll in, and they've been doing it for millennia and will continue to do it as long as the earth is here, right? So you'll have this continual thing. And if the earth disappears one day, those fragments will wind up doing something else, and it's so on and on and on and on and on. We, you, me, my wife, my children, my family, my brother, everybody is born out of the same one creation. And the purpose of having this one creation and being created in all of its beauty and all of its wonder is not to have it distorted by the thinking mind that splits us up into two worlds. That is the cause of suffering for you guys, right? It's over there and I'm over here. God's over there, I'm over here. My son is crossed over, he's over there, I'm over here. There's this constant opposites going on like this. Two worlds, two worlds, two worlds. And if, let's say, your son has crossed over and he was to walk into the room magically somehow, he would say, Mom and Dad, I have been standing here all the time. Did you expect me to stay in the car accident indefinitely? The fact is, I did die in the car accident, and as much as it broke your heart, it is true. And I'm asking you to please look at this with me so we can coexist together openly and beautifully and lovingly. But as long as you keep separating me like that, I can't really get to you. So that forces someone to come to someone like me or someone else like me, and they say, listen, this is what's really happening. And they go, oh my God, he's been here the whole time? Yes, he's not separated from you. He is really closer to you than before. Because when they die, by the way, when they die, physical death, my father, my mother, my brother, so on, they are no longer bound by the limitations of their own thoughts, and they're no longer bound by the limitations of their own form. They have returned back to the face, to the essence, before they took on the physical phenomena. That's it. That's it. And I'm not minimizing that their absence hurts you on a human level. I am not minimizing it at all. What I'm trying to get you to see, it's just a small, I don't want to sound like I'm minimizing it. It is a piece of your human experience that hurts. That's true. That is a big ache. There's no question about it. But it's not revealing what is absolutely true. And that is that form, what you called your son or your husband or your daughter, has dissolved and continues to radiate in all its awe and all its beauty, right? But because of this almost indoctrination, this almost hypnotic effect you have on yourself, you are convinced they're gone. Or you try to make believe they're here, and deep down you still struggle because you're really not sure if they're here or not, and you go through that battle. So you're never really walking comfortably. Right? So, to really come to that place, can you, or will you, or are you open to, if you really mean it, right? Talk is cheap. Talk is cheap, right? Anybody can say, I want to get sober, I want to get sober, God, I want to get sober. Talk is cheap, right? If you really do the work, meaning surrender to everything. What does that simply mean? It means you simply allow to be what is true. That's all surrender is. You are being 100% truthful with everything. And if you say, well, Robert, the truth of it is I am desperately heartbroken, I am crushed beyond words, I applaud you. I do. Because at least finally we've got you at a place where you're ready to change. But when you put on the face, when you try to make believe you're not what you are, when you do all of those imitational things, when you're varying off, you're going to different fantasies and imaginations and hocus pocus and running to every healer all over the place, it's about you. They can only point at the end game. It's about you, right? So therefore, if you don't want to live in two worlds and choose to truly, truly live in the beauty and the light and the love of this incredible experience called life. I mean, it's really amazing if you really think about it. The fact that I can move my fingers and make my voice, make words and have understandings and talk through a camera here, it's incredible. It's incredible. You know what I'm saying? It's incredible. And because of all of that, life jumps at you. And you start to see life as it's unfolding right in front of you. And what's beautiful about it is you are unfolding in front of life. You're not sitting back as a spectator. You are a witness, yes, but you're an active witness. You are completely vibrant, alert, alive, beautiful. And it is there that the two worlds will come together, and there will be a communion or a regaining of what some people refer to as a gift of grace. And it allows you to be free and find what we sometimes refer to as the peace beyond all understanding. So my friends, as we bring tonight to a close, I just want to tell you, you have it in your hand. You have it. You have it. All that is required is for you to get down to that honest place, that sincere place, and allow it to unfold. No holding back, no resistance. Allow it all to unfold as it is intended for you. And the two worlds will come together, and you will have one level of beautiful, pure consciousness in which everything will flow through you freely and easily. And that is the secret to finding peace and joy. It is in the present moment. It can be found nowhere else. No separation. Namaste. Thank you all very much for being here.